sky.co.uk/upgrades.
This is Sky News. Let's have a look at the stories on the front of tomorrow morning's newspapers, and we start with The Independent. It leads with the latest on the row over the use of injunctions to protect privacy, calling the law a farce. The Guardian leads with government plans to let popular state schools take on more pupils. The FT reports there are concerns that executives at the Bank of England can't be held to account. The Telegraph shows the Grimsvötn volcano, and the top story says supporting the elderly will cost £80 billion a year. The Express warns its readers fry-ups could cause cancer. Let's talk through some of those then with the sports writer from The Mirror, Darren Lewis, and the digital media journalist, Zara Rabinovic. It's good to see you both. Quick look at The Independent to start with. Darren?
Absolutely. This is about the player known as CTB.
Yes.
We were beforehand saying, we've got to not say his name.
I know, it's going to slip out one of these days.
Absolutely. The player known as CTB. The wonderful, wonderful front page from The Independent. And it basically goes through the legal minefield through which everybody is treading. And yet you go onto Twitter, you pick up a copy of the Sunday Herald, you go to Spain, you go to America, and his name is freely available. It's a nonsense.
I mean, is the law out of step, or is digital media to blame in this, Sarah?
Well, it's quite a tricky situation, because we've now heard that the unnamed celebrity is also suing Twitter, who's based in San Francisco, so UK law isn't going to apply there. So we need to really look at the bigger picture about how we're going to monitor the internet. Should Twitter start doing what YouTube does and having country restrictions for certain tweets? Quite how are they going to handle it, considering the new age we're in, and where privacy in Google pretty much makes being simple obsolete?
Yeah, I mean, was it 95 million tweets a day or something?
Yeah.
Just a quick point. I think we're reaching the end game with this, and I think that because that the information is so freely available elsewhere, the papers will not give up, and I think that I wonder if the papers will go for it. The player is like King Canute, really, putting his hole in and trying to stem the tide of what is an onslaught of information. I think the papers will get their victory in the end.
Let's move to the Express, if we can. Cancer risk in your fry-up, Zara. You don't strike me as someone who has a lot of fry-ups on that.
I'm a vegetarian, and
oh, me too.
For one thing. But yeah, they're saying now that we've discovered that if you're having too much red meat, it's going to increase your risk of bowel cancer. So it's something good to evaluate, but they're also talking about bacon and sausages and things which are generally unhealthy. And for instance, I've had cancer and I don't eat meat anyway, so they're kind of trying to give you a little bit of a scare story, and as you can see, as the headline goes, they're having cancer risk quite big just because that's the kind of thing that gets headlines.
Risk is what the Express does. I'm very reassured by Zara because I do like a fry-up, as you can probably tell. From my point of view, it's very reassuring to hear what Zara says. They're saying that your weekly menu should contain no more than 1 steak, 2 slices of roast lamb, 1 pork chop and a single portion of mince rather. I would never survive on that.
So it's good that bowel cancer is making the headlines, though, in the sense that it's that sort of one of those areas that people don't like to talk about. We've just very briefly have a look at marriage and a stable society, according to the Prime Minister, Zara.
Yeah, David Cameron is pushing the big society in a really good way. He's talking about the family institution and how he wants to make it more valuable. But at the same time, in his own cabinet, there's a bit of a shake-up with Chris Humes and all his alleged affairs and the difficulties with his divorce. So you're wondering, does that put him in a position where he needs to fire him? Is it going to say he can only employ people who have good marriages? Quite what is he trying to get at here?
It's the problem with moral messages and politics, isn't it, Darren?
I think so, because he's trying to place effectively families at the heart of his policy making. He's going to give this speech tomorrow. Telegraph saying that he could well score an own goal, because he obviously doesn't want to talk about this Chris Huhne affair. But the drip feed of information, as far as that's concerned, is really damaging to him, and it actually could damage a policy with this big society. You've reported on it yourselves. People don't know what it's all about. He's trying to tell them what it's all about, but at the same time, again, it's a minefield for him.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Darren, Zara, for now, thanks very much indeed. But a reminder that Darren and Zara will both be back again for our full half-hour press preview at 11:30, so we'll see you for that. But Sportsline is coming up next. Tony will have all the highs, and he'll have all the lows on the final day of the Premier League season. So it's time now for the press preview, and it's when we have a look at the best stories from tomorrow morning's newspapers. And joining me tonight, sports writer at The Mirror, Darren Lewis, and digital media journalist Zara Rabinowitz. Good to see you both. Before we have a chat, let's kick off by looking at the front pages. Start with The Independent, and it leads with the row over the use of injunctions to protect privacy, calling the law a farce. The Guardian says the government plans to let popular state schools take on more pupils. The FT says there are concerns that executives at the Bank of England can't be held to account. The Telegraph shows the Grimsvötn volcano, and the top story says supporting the elderly will cost £80 billion a year. The Eye says Britain could see their ash cloud by Tuesday, parts of Scotland at least. The Express is warning its readers that fry-ups could cause cancer. The Times says the Scottish Sunday paper, which identified the footballer with an injunction, faces potential legal action from the Attorney General. The Sun is saying Imogen Thomas has been taunted by fans. With a rather strange front page, we'll get that sorted out for you. The Daily Mail says Twitter users are revolting against super injunctions. The Mirror runs with letters from the Moors murderer Ian Brady, allegedly praising Al-Qaeda and the IRA. And the Daily Star says Britain's Got Talent judge Amanda Holden is caught up in a race row. So let's talk through those with Darren and with Zara, and we'll start, should we, with the Daily Mail and this ongoing row over speeding, Zara.
Yeah, it's quite sad really, because this speeding ticket happened 8 years ago and they're now actually talking about getting the children involved. So we've got here saying that the mother's saying the children are actually prepared to testify to talk about the alleged offence and who or who didn't get the penalty points on the licence. And we've got one of these kids doing their A-levels at this point in time. So, I mean, you have children yourself. You kind of understand it's hard to bring this sort of stuff up.
It is indeed, and I think as far as Chris Huhnes is concerned, I mean, look, the facts of the case are, I say clear. The alleged offence seems to be getting worse and worse for Chris Huhnes. It's quite funny to note William Hague in your footage there. He looked almost as uncomfortable when you asked him if he backed William Hague if he backed Chris Huhnes, as Chris Huhnes did when the police asked him where he was on the night in question, because. At first, I found it quite humorous, according to this piece, that he couldn't remember where he was, an MP who diarises where they are all the time. And then when you read this piece, it says that he's understood not to have access to the marital home where diaries and other paperwork might shed light on his travel arrangements. The problem they're having is that his wife, Vicky Price, former wife Vicky Price, has told friends that at least one of their children, as Zara was saying, could be prepared to give evidence against their father over the speeding penalty points. And there were images published yesterday of this driving licence. So he's in real trouble.
I mean, the problem with this, isn't it? I mean, there are several lines. So this says the legal side, the political side, but there's a huge personal side with this, isn't there, Zara? And this is, I mean, from all intents and purposes, what it seems is just, you know, the result of a nasty divorce.
It is a really sad story. You've got the breakup with the mother, which can't be hard or can't be easy to be in the public eye as you see it. You've got the mistress, you've got the new family situation. It ties all into his job and his massive political position and how that reflects on David Cameron. And then you've got the children who are being named, who are hearing about all of this, who are being asked to get involved in a really nasty legal dispute. And it's really sad.
Darren, you deal obviously primarily in sport, and so because of that and the fans that you talk to on a daily basis, you know what it's like to sort of be out and deal with people who are you know, living an ordinary life in all of this. There are serious legal implications here. You know, it is, if this happened, it would have been a criminal offence, and that obviously has political implications again if it happened. But how do we bring this back down to reality? Because at home, there's got to be hundreds and hundreds of people watching right now who have passed, you know, a point over here and there. I have to say, I've never done it, but I know people who have.
Yeah.
And I mean, should this be being taken as seriously as it is?
Yes, it's against the law to basically pass points from you that you've picked up having committed an offence.
But everyone
to
bends the
another
law
person.
with things like this, don't they?
But does that make it right?
Oh well,
I'm not sure
necessarily,
it does.
but it's that different line, isn't it? I mean, Zara, at the same point to you, really. I mean, it's it's what people do, whether it's right or wrong. Some people do bend the law and say, well, what harm is there in it?
People do bend the law a lot, but with driving and the kind of offences you can have there can lead to some really serious consequences. Because if you're a sloppy driver in terms of speeding, it might be one time you'll be a drink driver. And this is the kind of thing where I think we've got to be absolutely clear on, and it's not really acceptable.
And also, you know, we're talking about MPs who basically determine the conduct and sit in judgment on the conduct of you and I, the ordinary, you know, the poor people, as it were. And so if you have somebody, not only have they allegedly committed an offence, but it would appear that he's been economical with the truth about it, according to his ex-wife. And if it's proven that she's right and he's wrong, then where does that leave his political career? I think he's in a lot of trouble.
Do let us know what you think about that, and whether you've bent the law in that way, perhaps. Is this fair, unfair? I mean, or should politicians really be held strictly to account if, under some circumstances, they do bend the rules? News@sky.com, you can text us 8451. Just to reiterate, to ease my conscience on it once again, it is an alleged offence which he is denying and still denying. So, sit with that. Let's move to, still with the Daily Mail, inside pages again, page 11. Darren, looking at Obama's car.
Yeah,
I mean, look at it's a great illustration there, isn't it?
Well, I thought of two things when I saw this graphic. It's an excellent graphic in the Daily Mail. Obviously, your older viewers will know. I thought of Knight Rider, because this car can indeed do everything.
You don't have to be old to remember Knight Rider.
But I also thought of the movie 24, which obviously focuses around the President of the United States and the protection of him and all of the Secret Service agents and whatnot. But there's some wonderful detail in this, all about the car and the mechanics of the car. But what struck me wasn't so much a detail on the car, but it was the chauffeur, for example, trained by the US Secret Service to cope with the most demanding of driving conditions, which he will indeed need if he drives around the North Circular here in London, because I can tell you there are very demanding driving conditions. And also, it's only window will open for the driver by just 3 inches so that he can pay a toll or talk. So basically, he really does have to keep his mind on the... It's a wonderful, wonderful graphic, and the detail in it is superb. And I thought of 24, and sure enough, one of the sources at the Buckingham Palace have said the President's team are indeed running around the palace, brandishing their guns as if they own the place. It's like something out of that movie, 24. Thankfully, it's not like when George Bush came. He wanted all 760 palace windows, Buckingham Palace windows, replaced. The Queen was furious.
Really? Ooh, that's an interesting bit of gossip, isn't it? I mean, what do you make of this? I mean, what do you think punters online will make of all of this? When you look at, I mean, it's interesting, it's fascinating, it's very expensive at £1 million plus for a vehicle like this. What does it say about the world we live in, Zara, when someone has to have this level of security?
I think nowadays it's almost expected, especially when you're a president or a prime minister, that you're going to be a little bit excessive. And when you read the story, one of the things that just strikes you is almost how entertaining it is. Like, you read about that the doors are 8 inches thick of super steel, that everything's bulletproof. What else have we got here? We've got that the car is equipped with, can withstand armour and bullets, has tear gas cannons, night vision cameras, shotguns, and the President's blood is kept on board in case of an emergency transfusion. So it almost just shows you nowadays we have this kind of crazy high level of expectancy, almost due to shows like 24. And we can almost enjoy the ridiculous luxury of this guy just driving around in a crazy...
It's a big difference from when David Cameron became Prime Minister and he said, I'm going to dispense with the outriders, and he was sort of being waved at by people at traffic lights in London and things.
Yes,
not,
indeed.
Not that lasted very long.
No, indeed. But, you know, as Chris Greenwood's piece says, and I've got to credit Rebecca English, who's done it as well, you asked the question about the unprecedented level of security. And of course, the piece points out that it's in the wake of Osama's, bin Laden's death 3 weeks ago, and obviously the security risk to the President of the United States. And so they're obviously stepping up every precaution that they can.
Yeah. Let's move, if we can, Zara, to the Financial Times. They've got a great picture on the front of the Grimsvötn volcano. Again, it's causing a lot of concern, isn't it? I mean, hopefully it's not going to be as bad as the eruptions we saw last year. But you know, if you're getting on a plane next week.
Yeah, no,
you might have
people
a few
are really
concerns.
worried. Like, we're heard that by tomorrow it's possible we'll be able to see ash cloud over Scotland. And moving forward, potentially, if this happens, similar to how it did last time, we've got about 10 billion people, or sorry, 10 million, potentially stuck and unable to focus. And it's going to have a lot of money happening to industries. We're going to have a lot of people just basically really stuck and unhappy. And Iceland produces a lot of things, and one of their main exports is tourism, so they need people to be able to get there and be able to participate. And it might look beautiful, the images, but at the moment people in Iceland are being told that if they go outside they should wear protective clothing, so scarves and goggles. So just thinking about their everyday lives is quite unpleasant.
As we talk, you may see the pictures that we've got there, and I don't know if the team can grab those NASA images, if they're available or not. We're going to give it a whirl, because I have to say, the NASA images, the satellite images, are absolutely phenomenal.
It's interesting because they're saying that the ash cloud last year closed European airspace for 6 days, and they're saying that this volcanic eruption is much stronger, and so the implications obviously could be a lot more severe. And they're telling, obviously, even Air Force One transporting the President of the United States over here actually being told to divert.
But as we heard from David Learmount on Sky earlier on, they're saying, you know, there was controversy last time of the Virgin British Airways saying, you know, we could have flown in this.
Yes.
So this time, perhaps, maybe there will be a little bit more leeway. We shall have to see. Oh, have we got those images? Have a look at that, guys. I mean,
That's amazing.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Incredible, yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
They're saying
Right.
that this time round, obviously because of what we're seeing on the screen, that travellers should have a plan B, and I suppose it does indeed come down to what does it mean to us. If you are travelling around this time, have a plan B, have a contingency plan, because you could be quite badly affected.
Yeah, we shall have to see. We'll just a quick look, if we can, at the Independent before we take a quick break. And these, back to the injunction situation, Zara, this and all that's going on with Twitter. It's saying 30,000 tweeters could face legal action. It's not going to happen, is it? I mean, that seems extraordinary.
It's not going to happen. It's just getting ridiculous, this situation. We've got this unnamed celebrity who pretty much most of the world knows who they are now. We've got Scottish paper printing a large picture of a celebrity. We've got it all over Twitter, all over digital media, and it seems that the lawyers are just trying to take everything out of context and sue the world. I mean, it might be great publicity for their firm, but it's just getting like, you can't police the internet in this way. And just what are you supposed to do? And who do super injunctions even apply to? Because you've got the everyday public, and they're not really aware of this. They think that kind of terminology, you're talking newspapers, you're talking professionals, and just this kind of discrepancy is really curious.
But how does it work in terms of, I mean, obviously the law is an evolving thing, it never stands still, but the fact now that people knew that a super injunction was being breached in one way or another, and have gone on to deliberately defy it on Twitter and sort of sending messages saying, you know, sue me if you dare and what have you. I mean, it's sort of power to the people in a different way, a way we've not seen before, isn't it, with something like Twitter?
I think it's just an evolving nature of internet. I mean, a lot of these laws govern things that, when it was all print media, and it just, when we're looking at the evolving digital age, it doesn't apply in the same way. In the same way that the lawyers are saying they're going to sue Twitter for allowing the super injunction to be revealed in it. Twitter's based in San Francisco. So again, how does that go under UK law? And then it looks at the larger scale of what's the internet in general and how exactly you monitor what people are sharing and how. I mean, we've seen with a royal wedding, we've seen people tweeting pictures. We've just got a lot more instant info at our fingertips, and this is just the culmination of all of this together.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens over the coming week with that. Zara, Darren, for now, thank you. Stay with us, though, because there's much more still to come, including you can find out who Pippa Middleton's new boss is.
I am going to find out what happened down there.